and welcome to Nate's Nerdy Corner. So my top 10 underrated budget cards currently in Standard. The goal of this video is to find the best budget cards I can under $1 that are in Standard. Now let's get started. Number 10. Elusive Eternal Pilgrim. She is a 1 white, 1 black legendary core cleric creature with a power of 2 and toughness of 3 with Death Touch. These abilities within themselves make her pretty much playable in my opinion. There's not a whole lot of good creatures for 2 mana with a power 2 or 3 with a relevant ability, Death Touch. Now, looking at her other abilities could make her phenomenal. You pay 1 colorless, sacrifice another creature, you gain life equal to the creature's toughness. This is great in a lot of circumstances. One would be spot removal. Somebody is targeting to destroy one of your other creatures. You pay your colorless, sacrifice it in response, and you get life equal to its creature's toughness. A specific card that I'm thinking of in Standard right now would be Tree of Perdition. You sacrifice it, you gain 13 life, which can pretty much bring you back from horribly losing the game. In conjunction with the second ability, which is pay 1 colorless, a white and a black, sacrifice another creature, exile target non-land permanent. Similar situation. They play some sort of spot removal or board removal. You, in response, sacrifice tree, pay the other 3, and exile an enchantment, artifact, or whatever they would have left on the board. The downside to this ability is you do have to have at least 10 more life than the starting life total, which makes it pretty rough, which is why you have to have a very specific shell. But at 80 cents, it is underrated in my opinion. Number 9. Asylum Visitor. 1 colorless, 1 black for a vampire wizard creature. Power of 3 and toughness of 1. This in itself is mediocre. There's a lot of cards with 2 costs with 3 power and 1 toughness. What makes this undervalued in my opinion is that ability. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, if that player has no cards in hand, you draw a card and lose a life. For any sort of fast aggro-y vampire deck, you quickly run out of cards. Madness makes this also very relevant, as there's several discarding mechanics inside most of your vampire decks. At the low cost of 88 cents, this is something that will pump the deck significantly, and I think it's underrated. Number 8. Scab Clan Berserker. 1 colorless, double red for a human berserker creature with power and toughness 2/2. What I believe makes this card underrated is number 1, it has haste, number 2 has renown, so it's a 3/3 after the first hit, and the last ability is really very brutal against any sort of control or tempo type of deck that uses decks. Every time they cast a non-creature spell, they take 2 damage. And at 33 cents, I believe that makes it quite Number 7. Brutal Expulsion. It's a 2 colorless, blue and red instant speed spell. Has Devoid, which is not overly relevant in the current Standard as there's not a whole lot of protection from colors. But who knows what the next sets are going to bring. The abilities. Choose one or both. Return target spell or creature to its owner's hand. And Brutal Expulsion does 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. That permanent would be put into the graveyard this turn, exile it instead. This is a phenomenal 2-for-1 spell. You can return whatever sort of threat they have on the board, pseudo counter a spell, which by the way gets around uncounterable, and then actually remove something, exiling it, which for certain decks is actually relevant. And at a low price of 15 cents, this is a supremely undervalued. Number 6. Brainwing Mayor. It's a 2 colorless, 1 white creature, Pegasus. Has a power of 2 and a toughness of 1. Has flying. The main ability for this card is non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. It's an extremely useful ability in any sort of creature-heavy deck, especially if you're running anything that has a lot of instants, any sort of control variation. And at 30 cents, it is underrated. Number 5. Woodland Wander. 3 colorless and a green for an elemental creature with a base power of 2/2. Has vigilance and trample. Now the converge is what makes this card ridiculous if you're playing multiple colors. When it enters the battlefield, it gets 1/1 counter for each color of mana spent on it. So essentially you can have a 6/6 Vigilance Trample creature for 4. The multiple colors makes it kind of iffy, but at 15 cents this card is undervalued and is ridiculous. Number 4, Geralf's Masterpiece. It's a 3 colorless, double blue zombie horror creature. Has a base power of 7/7. Has flying. Masterpiece gets -1/-1 for each card in your hand. Having a 7/7 flyer on the board is ridiculous. Granted, it will get -1/-1 for certain spells. It's a little high mana cost, but being able to basically dredge it up from the graveyard, instant speed at the end of the other player's turn, discarding 3 cards, and getting in for that 7 their next turn can be ridiculous and win many games. At the price of 87 cents, it is a finisher for a lot of different control or tempo type decks. Number 3, Elusive Tormentor. It's a double colorless black vampire wizard creature. Has a power and toughness of 4/4. This was a card I did not initially like, but after playtesting it inside the vampire red-black vampire shell, I found to be phenomenal. You pay 1, discard a card, and you transform the Tormentor over into Insidious Mist, which is a 0/1 indestructible hexproof creature. It can't be blocked or can't block, and you can flip it over for a black and 2 colorless in order to make it back into the 4/4. So you discard, hopefully using some sort of madness spell on your discard, flipping it over to make it indestructible, hexproof in response to any sort of spot removal, or if you just need to be able to get in. After you swing, they can't block, you flip it and you hit in for the 4/4. This has been brutally effective from what I've seen, and at only 21 cents, it is a great deal. My number 2 pick is Merkels Evangel. It's a 2 colorless green for a human horror creature with a power of 3 and toughness of 2. The ability is what makes this card ridiculous. You tap it to sacrifice Merkels Evangel and any number of other non-Eldrazi creatures. You put a 3/2 colorless horror creature onto the battlefield for each of those creatures sacrificed. This goes phenomenal in any sort of aristocrat deck like with Zulapur Cutthroat or an Impact Tremors. Anything that would trigger creature die or entering. So the ability on this card for 21 cents is just. And my number 1 pick, Sin Prodder. 2 colorless and a red for a creature devil with power of 3 and toughness of 2. It has Menace, which is an extremely relevant ability. But what really makes this card shine is at the beginning of your upkeep, you reveal the top card of your library. The opponent has to choose whether to put it into your graveyard and take the converted mana cost and damage, or you get additional card draw that turn. So this is exactly what you're looking for in most of your mid-rangey red centered decks. So you can flip a Chandra or a Thunderbreak Regent, and they're going to have to choose between giving you an extremely viable card or taking 4, 6, or 3 damage. Basically giving you every upkeep a pseudo bolt that you can hit them with. Most of the time this is going to eat up most of their removal, which is okay as well. You'd rather them use that than on a Chandra or a Thunderbreak or one of your other hard-hitting creatures. So either way, it is a phenomenal card. And at only 82 cents, it is a steal of a card. This is by far one of my favorite cards in the format, and I cannot believe it's not seeing more play than it's getting right now. This wraps up my top 10 underrated budget cards in Standard. Let me know what you think about them. Put any comments or concerns that you have. This is my first video, so I know the production is a little sketchy, but I'm going to be working on it and improving it as I go. Let me know what you think, and have a good one.